Hello again. In this second video lecture for the fifth session, we will take a more detailed look at the economical situation of Cologne in the time in question. And that is the period from 1870 to 1900, to the turn of the century. Cologne had had a very solid economic development during the 19th century, as compared at least to other German cities. By 1870, it was far from being an industrial center like Manchester in England or Liège in Belgium, but it was well prepared to enter the next stage. Now, that Cologne had a good industrial basis, that was essentially owed to a very innovative and courageous entrepreneurial elite. In many cases, the youngest member of those century-old families that had run the city and had made a fortune as merchants and traders were smart enough to adapt to the new times. Instead of continuing outdated systems of trading, they used their wealth to enter financial business and to act as investors within what by the time was the new economy. Industrialist enterprises like engineering and chemical laboratories, modern infrastructure like railways and steamboats, or other technological or urbanistic innovations. Though the Cologne bankers and investors were pretty successful with it and continued in this vein after the foundation of the German Reich. However, they too got caught by the founders' boom crisis, which consisted basically in the combination of an overcapitalized market with exaggerated expectations. As we heard in the previous lecture, French reparations following the French-German War 1870-71 were paid surprisingly quick, and the money flooded the capital market. It was invested too impatiently and too generously into enterprises which weren't able to serve the profit expectations due to supply bottlenecks, lack of resources, or simply lack of experience. Anyway, the whole system overheated, and a good Cologne example is the Schaffhausen Bank, a typical investment bank which within 2 years tripled its emitted capitals. Here we see the main building of the traditional Schaffhausen Bank. The address was Untersachsenhausen 4, it exists today. A prestigious institute by a long-standing Cologne-based dynasty of merchants and bankers. They just about avoided failure in 1873. The whole financial market collapsed in May 1873 when rumors about an imminent crash of the Paris stock market induced the Austrian National Bank to sell a stock package of 20 million. A move that indeed led to the collapse of the stock market in Vienna and ruined several banks and businesses, and indeed provoked similar crashes at the stock markets in Paris, London, New York, and Berlin. The bubble had burst and reset the economy on an adjusted level. In particular, the construction boom was temporarily stopped and hit. This could be noticed at Cologne's most prestigious construction site, which was the cathedral, still in the final phase of completion. While in the years 1871 to 73, public works at the cathedral were severely slowed down by the lack of workforce in demand and better paid elsewhere, works at the cathedral benefited hugely from the post-1873 crisis, when workforce returned at the labor market and lower prices and public works could continue more intensely than before. A nice example of anti-cyclical benefits. Here again the stock market crash in Vienna from May 1873, which was iconic and got frequently illustrated, like here in the Illustrierte Zeitung of June 1873. Even though it was, as I argued before, a rather fictitious crisis, and in reality markets just adjusted to the enormous transformation of the economy of the second industrialization, nevertheless it felt for many like a real crisis, with real effects for some parts of the economy. Indeed, who did not fit into the new economy suffered from the downfall, and many startups, but also traditional companies who had missed out timely modernization, were not able to keep up. The failure rate increased and temporarily unemployment rose, also in Cologne. The saving rate dropped sensibly, as did the pace of urban growth. Given the accelerated increase of population, this seemed like a diminution, which however it never was. Well, the economic mood was somber, and some historians do even ascribe, at least partly, the Kulturkampf, the battle of culture between the state and militant Catholicism at which we looked last week. Some historians ascribe the Kulturkampf to the economic tension. I personally find that argumentation a bit far-fetched, but the economic tension certainly did not contribute to mitigate social conflicts. Well, after all, Cologne was quite well off in terms of economic development, as it benefited from a relatively diversified industrial landscape. Cologne never had focused on an economic sector only, but attracted and supported various sectors and specializations. The mixed industry in Cologne did also include several hidden champions in the high-tech sector, which might have been smiled at as nerds and pioneers, but which contributed to the effect that Germany, a latecomer in the First Industrial Revolution, stormed the stage during the Second Industrial Revolution. Some of the mavericks of the 1850s became the starting point of large concern groups and big players of the 1880s and 1890s. Here we see a schematic representation of the economic map of Cologne. From the concentration of dots representing companies, we can start by spotting the industrial economical centers. There's a concentration of enterprises in the west, in the area of Ehrenfeld, around here, yeah. And there is one in the east, in Kalk, in Mülheim, and in Deutz, in this area, at the other side of the Rhine. Now, black dots are companies with more than 1,500 employees. Grey ones are those with more than 1,000, followed by green ones with over 500 employees. If we just focus on these, on the black and grey ones, we can spot that two big players were even located within the inner city. Here, these two. Numbers 4 and number 3, which were the Stolberg chocolate manufacturer, one of the biggest employers in all Cologne, and the Cologne cotton spinnery, which both were situated in the southern part of Cologne center within the Walling. The massive mechanical and engineering fabrics were located in Kalk, Mülheim and Deutz in this area, in lesser populated areas. Chemical and electrical enterprises were based in the north, here in Niel, and in Ehrenfeld, far off the city center and by the time not even on city territory. Let's take a closer look at some of these companies. The sugar industry had been a very important one for the Rhineland during the 1840s and 1850s due to the widespread cultivation of the sugar beet. But it fell in decline by the end of the century due to rationalization and modernization of sugar refinery and due to the availability of overseas sugar cane. Pfeiffer and Langen was a latecomer in the 1850s, but quick in modernizing his manufacture with own innovations. Originally based in Ossendorf, now part of Cologne, then a suburb, the fully modernized fabric moved to Elsdorf by the end of the century, a bit to the west of Cologne near Bergheim, while the administration was located in Cologne. The corporate logo, two sugar loaves, not very sophisticatedly, reminded of the two towers of the cathedral. Pfeiffer and Langen revolutionized the sugar business in 1872 with an innovative production method for cube sugar. So that was one story, success story. The mechanical sector was represented by three top players: the railway wagons and engines fabric of Zypern and Charlier, which was a leading company and worldwide in demand; the gas engine fabric Deutz, which was among the most innovative producers of engines and destined to international acclaim for the invention of the Ottomotor, the Otto engine; and the machine fabric Humboldt, which was a leading engineering company in the field of mining and excavating, just a few pictures. Here we have the railway wagon and carriage fabrik van der Zypern and Chalier, as I said, in Köln-Deutz, founded in 1844, and soon a leading producer for trams and carriages by the end of the century. Please note the cathedral on the left side of the horizon line here. Given the extension of the industrial plant, this picture was probably drawn around 1880. From the left, a tram of the city tram in Kassel and a carriage of the first Gotthardtunnel railway. And hey, there is also the prototype of the Wuppertal overhead railway, which was developed and installed on the fabric's test ground in Deutz before it was sold to Wuppertal. And here we do have the Deutz, the Maschinenbauanstalt Humboldt, which was founded by Nikolaus August Otto. That's the one who is about to construct the Otto engine, and Eugen Langen. These two engineers took inspiration from the gas engine constructed by the French Etienne Lenoir, and Otto developed and improved his version of the gas engine and presented it on the World Exhibition in Paris in 1867, where he was awarded an innovative prize. The company then was renamed, and there were a number of mergers, and in the end it came down to the Maschinenbauanstalt Humboldt, which was one of Germany's leading machinery and engine industries at all. Later they formed, together with the Gasmotorenfabrik Deutz, an even bigger player, the Humboldt Klöckner Deutz, a leading company of engines and commercial vehicles, but that is only in the beginning of the 20th century. Then we have the chemical sector. Here it is, which was represented by two major initiatives, the Chemical Fabrik Kalk and the rubber-producing Rheinische Gummiwarenfabrik, that continued the business of the Klaus Gummiwerke, the Klaus Rubber Works. Originally founded in 1968, now let's first talk about the chemical fabric. That is the chemical fabric in Kalk, which was founded in 1858 by the chemist and pharmacist Hermann Julius Grüneberg and the merchant Julius Forster, and they processed potash salts into pure potassium chloride as fertilizers. And fertilizers were hugely in demand, and started a very successful business of industrially produced compound fertilizers. They also produced and sold heavy chemicals such as potassium nitrate and sodium sulfate and other things. The plant still exists, but it is now part of the K+S concern, a global player in potash salts and basic chemistry. And this is a picture of the Klaus Gummiwerke, the rubber fabric founded by Franz Clauth in 1868. And what they were specialized in was, for example, gummed silk for zeppelins, for the aircrafts of the time. It was a highly innovative and flexible enterprise, and it only closed its doors in 1992, when it was merged with Continental, the famous tire producer. And last but not least, since 1870, there was also an important contribution to the electrical sector. The Helioswerke, originally Bartel and Berghausen & Co. company for electrical light and telegraph construction, they started their business in Köln-Ehrenfeld and soon grew bigger and bigger. What they were specialized in was electrification, first of industries and soon of entire cities all over Europe. They specialized in the construction of entire power plants for alternating current, by the time a cutting-edge technology and in demand by many cities who turned to electrical supply for the entire population. So that is my survey of Cologne industries and economic companies. Thanks again, and see you for the last video lecture later on.